Welcome to Wisdom Woman podcast. I believe that is in constant change and growth, not in perfection, that we find happiness. In this podcast, I'm going to be talking with top performance professionals about tools, techniques, new ideas on how to develop your communication skills, use your creative thinking, be a team player, manage your tasks like a pro, be motivated, become an expert on relationships, and a problem solver. Everything you need to be 5 stars in all areas of your life. My intention is to help you develop your skills and find balance between your professional and personal life. My name is Bettina Meyer-Flug, and I hope I can be your trusted advisor. Diversity. This is a popular topic nowadays, isn't it? It's now well known that diversity in the individual uniqueness in people bring creativity and vitality to organizations, enriching its business practice and making it for sure more successful. It is likely by capturing and drawing on diverse points of view that we can improve the advice and service that we provide for our clients and our communities. The current world needs professionals who know how to relate and deal with different styles of people, who want to express themselves freely and act collaboratively. Today, we're going to be talking about relational intelligence. Our specific interest has been to understand the individuals and the dynamics of relationships. To deep dive into this topic, we're going to interview Pat Nicholson, one of the most popular facilitators of Local Think Tank, a peer-to-peer advisory company for entrepreneurs here in Northern Colorado. Recently, he participated on a Triad's Relational Intelligence training provided by Local Think Tank, and he will share his perspective about this special framework. Welcome, Pat, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Hey, thanks, Bettina. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us more a little bit about your background before you became a facilitator at Local Think Tank?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I spent the last 25 years in high tech, a lot of that out in Silicon Valley. So I worked 16 years for Apple Computer and now Apple Inc. And I've led marketing and growth at a couple of different venture-backed startup companies. So one company was in digital textbooks, another company in sports technology. And then most recently, I was the chief marketing officer for a fintech company called Deserve. But about 6 years ago, we moved from Silicon Valley to Fort Collins. And when I relocated here, I spent the first 3 years commuting back to a job in the Bay Area. And so my family got settled here. We bought a home. We kind of learned what restaurants we like and went to, festivals and stuff they had around town. And I did get to meet some people, but I felt like, for the most part, I just had acquaintances here and that I didn't really live here because during the week I was in the Bay Area all the time. And so I wanted to change that. And I started reaching out to people and just kind of making I didn't have a master plan, but I had an intention to get to know some people in town, find some people that were maybe good connectors that knew a lot of other people, to just find a way to get to know people in the business community here. And in those efforts, a couple different people pointed me to Kurt Bear. And Kurt Bear is he's the founder and leader of Loco Think Tank, which, as Bettina said, is peer advisory. So it gets business owners together in a setting where they kind of serve as a board of advisors to one another. And we can talk more about that. But just in terms of introduction, I was really interested in getting involved because it would be a chance to get to know some people, maybe form some friendships, but also just also get to know some business owners here in town. And it's really paid off. I feel a lot more connected to my community as a result. I've been doing it now for 4 years. So yeah, that's my background. And just, I kind of accidentally fell into tech because I was a philosophy and English lit major as an undergraduate. And I was, I didn't do that because I did it because I wanted to become a professor, right? So I was pretty into it. And I have, done a lot of, not that I know everything, but I've done a lot of thinking and reading about human nature, human psychology, cognitive development. And so those things have always interested me. And I just happened to come out of college right as the internet was becoming uh, kind of popularized in the mid 90s. And I fortunately got on in a contractor position in the mailroom at Apple. That led to 16 years at Apple. I met my wife on my route, and so that all worked out pretty well for me. But I still find, there's some connections to my professional career, to what we're going to talk about today, but just also my academic background. I find all of this very interesting.
So you have a lot of experience with different assessment tools that help identify people's personalities. And how do you compare what have you learned with Triad's relational intelligence versus what you've seen before?
Yeah, good question. I am not like an expert in all these different systems, but I have been exposed and I've used systems in the past. At Apple, we actually used Myers-Briggs. And since then, my daughter was really into Enneagrams. And so I did my Enneagram assessment. And, professionally, I've been exposed to DISC and have used DISC before. And we actually even had a DISC workshop in my local group before you did the Halos workshop. And so one thing that I find kind of interesting and useful about any of the systems is that they give you a framework that gives you a reflection of yourself, your own kind of style, your what you're predisposed towards. And in doing so, I see every time I do this, I find it myself, but I see it in others too, that you kind of, where you learn some things about yourself, but you also almost always come to the conclusion to go, it reminds you to go, oh yeah, not everyone is wired like I am. Not everyone thinks the way I do, or not everyone has the same strengths, and sometimes they have different strengths that I don't have. And I think that that's always just a healthy thing to have that reflection put in front of you, to think about that. And certainly in a professional environment, it is critical to kind of understand and be able to play to your strengths, but also to be able to think about things like hiring people that are going to be a good fit. And you don't necessarily just want to hire a mini version of yourself, right? And
Yeah,
as you think about organizational planning, and there's so many different ways in which just this awareness can be beneficial. So that's the way that I think all the systems are beneficial. But I'll pause there in case you have anything you want to say. But then I can talk a little bit about what I think sets Halos apart.
Yeah, I think this is important because I really admire DISC and Enneagram, but I think when implementing to an organization is a little bit complicated in long term because you have to have specialists. And what Triads try to bring is like a knowledge that everybody can share. What is your point of view on that?
Yeah, well, I find that like what I really enjoy about Halos and the triad system is that I just think it gives a richer description of me as an individual as well as other people, especially when we workshopped it and I got to learn about other people because it has 6 dimensions to it. And it seems like it deals with both your kind of inherent traits or things that you've really internalized strongly, as well as those that you've learned and kind of layered on more like skill sets that you use that. And I think we refer to those as masks you put on because, over time, all of us, that have been in the workforce for a while have to learn things that aren't natural to us to be effective in the work environment. And so that was something I never got from DISC or Enneagrams. It was really more about, like DISC seemed to be more about my skill sets, like what I was more predisposed to like do to try to get things done, or what role I would take in an organization. And some of the others like Myers-Briggs and others are, maybe weighted a little bit more towards intrinsic values and skills. But I think it all comes together in Halos in an interesting way. And, I also really like, and the vocabulary better than I because you're much more versed in this than I am, but the way that it uh, for whatever your um, intrinsic skill sets are, or your sort of main, set of learned traits, there are things that are kind of pros and cons that go with having that sort of makeup and personality type and those sort of skills. And there's certainly a lot of pros, but it sort of then lays out the cons as well, and it puts these different skill sets in opposition so that you get an understanding that sometimes, too much of a good thing isn't always a good thing, right? Sometimes it can work against you, and what you're trying to accomplish. And so then it gives you that sort of perspective on, well, if that's not working, or if I feel frustrated and I'm not getting anywhere, I know one place I can look, and maybe I could try something a little different. Because obviously, because ultimately it is about, there's being right, but there's also, but being right doesn't always like win the day or get achieve the objective. You have to appeal to other people, and especially if you're a leader, you have to be able to motivate people and make them feel valued so that they can feel like and take ownership of what you're trying to achieve in an organization, for example. So like if you just think about it in your own head the way you would do it, I don't know, sometimes you just turn people off. And if you can expand your perspective and look at it through the other person's lens, and try to talk to them in language where they can find their own success in doing what you're proposing, I just find it works out a lot better. And I don't know, I'm rambling a little bit, but I found that in Halos, there was a lot of reinforcement of that general idea, and then actual tools you can use when you encounter situations like that.
I totally agree. You're describing what we taught you about polarities, that we do have complementary qualifications or qualities in our lives, and all qualities have positive aspects and negative aspects. And once we are aware that we have both, we have the positive and the negative, and how to navigate on those qualities, that's super important. I totally agree with you. This awareness really changed my life and my relationships. And who do you think can benefit from this methodology? Only leaders, in your point of view?
Yeah, I think this is a good tool for leaders to get exposed to. So I could see this being great for like an executive retreat type of situation where you want your leaders to get exposed to it, to start to internalize this and think about how they're going to put it to work in their own life and certainly in their business role. But then I think there'd be a lot of power in bringing this type of system into a larger organization, so that basically there's a common vocabulary and way of talking and thinking about these things, so that as you're trying to advance the mission of that organization, when you're doing things like maybe giving review feedback, if everyone had this and there was something to refer to, one, I think it would be a good reminder for anyone in leadership to who they're talking to, right? And to, and really, I think as leaders, like, especially if you're in larger organizations, it's kind of on you to try to get the most out of the people that you have in your organization. And I think it's just kind of an easy thing, knee-jerk thing for people to go to when they're frustrated or not getting things done, to think, oh, these people just aren't any good. Well, I think this would help leaders, like, maybe rethink that one and find ways to motivate people. But I also think for the people that are maybe in an organization that aren't in a like executive position, just to work with their peers, right? And to work cross-functionally. I think that this type of awareness would be something that, if it was part of the common vocabulary within a company, that it would definitely be beneficial in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I agree. And also for creating new teams. For example, I'm coaching a marketing agency in Brazil, and they are creating a new team, and they need complementary people, people that really complement each other to make an efficient team. And right now we identify that the owner that's really good on relationships needs someone with organizational skills to help him out, manage the projects more efficiently. So once you identify what type of skills you need in your company, you can try to find someone that will fit this need. Not, like you said at the beginning, hiring people like you all the time. That's a tendency that we have.
Yeah, definitely. I think you do need that diversity of perspective and kind of skills to get better outcomes. And this, what you just said reminded me of, like, my group is comprised of generally small business owners. Most of them are pretty successful with their small businesses here in Fort Collins, and as sort of, which makes them entrepreneurs. They've started their own business. They run their own business. They hire teams. And when we did the DISC analysis, like, out of 12 people, we had 10 that were DI. So they were, what does D stand for? Is it driven, or it's like
Dominant.
drive? Yeah, they were achiever dominant, and next they were influence dominant. So they first try to dominate, and then if that doesn't work, they try to influence. Which is a common thing for common traits for leaders. But the same group of people did the Halos assessment, and we had a lot of different nuance to the readout. It wasn't just like, oh, everyone's a DI, and that's what business leaders need to be. The reality is people have a lot more variation and diversity within a group, even if they are, prone to, being people that try to get things done and are the type of people that would start their own business. There are certain things that go along with that, but that doesn't tell the whole story. And I think with this richer readout of not only themselves, but as they would get a richer readout and look at, like, maybe potential hires or the people they already have on their team, I think it would give them perspective to say, hey, we're really heavy in this area, but we don't have enough of this. And I think if we hire for that, it's going to balance our team out, and our team's going to function better. Because for teams to function well, they have to, get things done, and it takes a lot of things in that recipe. You have to have, clear objectives, communication of those objectives. You have to have people bought into it. You have to have all the stuff that's about achieving what the business needs, but people also need to feel valued, and they need to feel like it's a good place to be, and that they like their peers, and and that's never in full balance. But I think these tools would give you more perspective on what would bring more balance, because I've learned this, the hard way many times in my career in building out teams, is that while it's never perfect, sometimes, some intentional changes, and when you have this type of awareness, they can make a huge difference, not just in what you get done, but how good people feel about it, right? And if people feel good about where they work, then you tend to keep, like, high achieving teams together longer, right? So in any event, there's so many different ways you could talk about this, but I really wanted to make that point about, like, really interesting the way the DISC readout came and what we walked away from that, thinking, hey, we're all the same. And when we did this, we really saw a lot of meaningful differences.
What I enjoyed during the workshop was seeing that people were recognizing themselves in the different 5 colors of Triad's methodology. And at the end, you can see when they were putting out an opinion, said, you're being a green, you're being a white.
Yeah.
So the 3 main pillars of this methodology will allow you to increase the self-awareness of leaders and team members, to understand and include diversity of talents in their individual expression. And the third one is to transform the professional relationship into a more collaborative environment. And I would like to have your opinion about it, how this method helped people be more collaborative among each other.
Yeah. Well, we are looking at a couple of things that we want to do. Now, just for the listeners' benefit, we just had this workshop within the last month. So we, and everyone really enjoyed it. I think got a lot of insights from it. And there's general buy-in that we want to integrate this, like what we do month to month. So first, I probably need to paint a picture of what we do. So we get together once a month. Again, it's myself facilitating, and we have about 12 different business owners here in town and their businesses and their business models very, very greatly. Like we have a CPA, we have a woman who runs a, uh, a center where they sell lighting. We have a guy that runs a European car auto shop. So he basically works on Porsches. And so great diversity of kind of businesses, personalities, and so forth. But they talk about their business, they talk about their lives, and each month, one of the business owners does a deep dive presentation, not just on where their business is at, but what are the key kind of challenges and opportunities that are in front of them. And they'll usually narrow the focus down to one or two things that they really want to talk to the group about, what their plans are, and process that and get feedback. And so anyway, that for context. But as we look at the Halo system, given all the sort of engagement we had at the session last month around like, oh, well, you're more of a thinker, right? You're kind of always up in the clouds, but you need people to help you get things done, right? Because you'll just keep spinning ideas, or like, oh, you're someone who's a green, who is always, kind of thinking about how people feel and if they feel valued, if they're motivated, things like that. And that's wonderful, but you can't just mother everyone, right? And so people were having these conversations, and I think that what we're going to do is we're going to use the Halos, chart with the two dominant colors and then the sort of learn trait in the middle, and we're going to create a slide around that so that every month someone comes in to present on their business, they're going to start by reminding people like, hey, this is what makes me tick. These are the things that I'm good at, or that I'm predisposed to, and this is kind of how it's playing out in my business right now. So we're going to do that as some kind of ground setting before we get into the specifics of their business. And I just think too that like over the course of time, people like bring up issues, and we'll talk about them from meeting to meeting, like what happened with that. I just see it becoming something that we refer back to a lot, and that it's going to help the different members both recognize who they're talking to, and ultimately, I think give more, or not more advice, but better advice as a result of it.
Can you tell me a little bit about your colors, how this test came up for you, and what colors do you have represented?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I have my report right here. So my first color, I'm 60% integrator systematic or systemic, which is brown. I'm 40% achiever entrepreneur. That's my second color. And my third color is white, which is innovator thinker.
That's good. So let's try to explain our audience what is the difference between the three colors. Okay, we do have a first color that represents how individuals observe, filter, and see the world. That's define how they interact and communicate with life in all its dimensions. The second color, we call it complementary color, is a development and challenges that you face during life, and it's a complementary type that acts in polarity with your first color. So it promotes your development, and it's like a dance between those two colors that you have your whole life. And the third colors is something that you develop along your life. So in my case, my first color is orange, the second is green. So I'm very communicative, I'm a go achiever. And my third color, what brings me balance and pacification, is the blue, the balanced one. It represents what you develop through life by being around people with this type. And everybody has three colors. The two main ones are the ones that you operate in polarity, and the third one who brings you balance. So what are the difference between the four colors? The orange is a person focused in achieving goals and results. The orange is determined, like challenges, can easily solve problems and put a lot of energy into everything they do. Orange like an activity that offers challenge and goals to be achieved. Do you have anyone in your group that's orange? You said you have a lot of D's. Probably you do, don't you?
Yeah, there was a lot of orange, and it's my second color, so I can relate.
So let's talk about the white. You have white on yours. White is a reflective and idealist person who lives based on his principles. They have a natural affinity to creating new concepts and bringing clarity and different perspectives to ideas and to groups. Generally, they are very calm, a focused person who likes silence, enjoying being alone, does not express emotions, and is inspiring and a guardian of principles. And you said you study a little bit of philosophy and you have some white, don't you?
I do, yeah, yeah, and I do feel like for me, it's the thing that brings things into balance. So if I'm a brown, I'm a systems thinker, and I can usually see the big picture. But I'm orange is kind of what balances that out, because you can think about the system all day, but ultimately you have to get some things done. And so I've always kind of been like, all right, that's fine, but let's also make sure we know what we're doing next. But then I feel best about it all if I feel like it's towards a good cause, or if it's in line with principles and it's like has a purpose, if you will, because it's and I feel like there's always a kind of interplay between those three things. But I definitely feel best about things if I am bought into why I'm doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's talk about the green now. The green are the person who listen to, who welcomes, who motivates, who develop others. Greens are very flexible influencers. They include different people. They emphasize with natural talent and gets along very well with any type when they want. They're also a very practical person. They can build bridges and connection between people, and they really like happy environments. So this is the green type. Let's talk about your brown. You're a special person. You're brown. You're a very profound observer of the world. They have just interested in finding out how everything is connected. Remember, I mentioned about the roots of the tree. So the interconnections, they want to understand everything. My husband is a brown, and I really admire his perspectives. He works in logistics, by the way. So Brown needs times to study deeply everything you present to them. They want to understand all the variables of the problem before taking any actions. And if they don't understand the connection, they won't act. They need to understand the connections. Do you relate with that, Pat?
Well, I do. I don't like doing things if I don't like just charging forward and doing things if I haven't thought about like um, what impacts it's going to have to other things, and whether or not it's really going to help us achieve like the goals that we've set. So I'm generally, but on the other hand, I think I've learned to be not like, sometimes you never have all the information, right? So kind of, it feels like it's been a learned trait to me to not just get too caught up into trying to understand everything, but to say like, oh, I understand enough to act, and we can do this, and we can basically make progress on this, and these things shouldn't have any negative impacts on other things. Let's go ahead, let's get moving. So that's something I've learned over the course of my career, is to just kind of be driven towards results, even when you don't have all the information. So I think I've arrived at a reasonably good balance between those two things in my life.
That's important. Because you have the orange, you want to get things done as well. That's really good. Yeah. So the last one is the blue, a very organized, methodical person who plans and acts efficiently in everything they do. Blue is interested in dates, facts, and spreadsheets, analytical, logical, rational, and all their attitudes. So they really are rational. Blues do not like when emotions arise in conversations. So if you come crying to a blue, he will feel uncomfortable. And they are very good in managing processes. So I think I really admire blues. I think blues get things done in organizations. It's an amazing combination. And we saw inside local think tank that Kurt, the owner, is very white and good on relationships, but he didn't had much blue and brown. And now we do have Alma, that's his assistant over there, who's very organized, and they're doing amazing work together, like complement each other. And that's how I try to operate as well with all my team. I try to hire people that are different than me. And I hope this will help you as well, Pat, in your career and for you as a facilitator. Do you think this will help your path too?
Yeah, I do. I think, just already, since doing the workshop, it's um, changed my perspective on some things. And in addition to facilitating a group, I consult and I go in and I serve as a fractional executive at startup companies. So I have to get to know the other people and kind of quickly assess, like, usually I go in with an understanding of what they're trying to accomplish, but then once you sign up, you really have to get to know, like, what are their current capabilities, how are they doing it now, and then who are the people involved, right? And how can we kind of get people involved in solving the problem so that it's not just some outside person telling them what to do, but it's like someone that's coming in to work with them to figure it out and then to do it. And so I just think, like, not while I don't have their report necessarily, I think this has helped me just be more aware and better at reading people and thinking about, like, well, how can I reach them in a way to where, we just have some trust and feel good about what we're talking about and working on. And I find it helpful.
Yeah, for myself, really changed my life because I'm working as a coach now and I can easily identify my clients. Also, for my personal life, I interact much better with my daughters. I understand them. Now I have a student exchange in my house. It's easy to adapt to the situations. I work as a scout leader. So every time we have a new people joining our troop, it really, really helped me. So there are different ways for you to get engaged with this methodology. You can do the assessment if you want to understand more about yourself and have a one-on-one meeting with me or several other people that are trained on the methodology to understand your report. You're going to receive a 28-page report about yourself. Another way is if you want to bring this to your company, we do have a workshop. This one that Pat was describing is a 4-hour training that we bring to your organization. And normally we test everybody it's going to participate on the training. And everybody received their own report, but we do some activities together to really go deep into the methodology. But if you are a leader and if you really want to understand, or if you're a coach, a facilitator, or an HR person in a company, you can get certified. And we're going to bring the founder of this methodology here to United States in September. So September 9 is going to be the certification. The first day is an 8-hour training in person with the founder. And then 4 following Fridays for 4 hours online. So you're going to have almost 2 months to learn about it, to practice, because this is not something that you just implement in your life once and then you forget about it. You have to revisit, like Pat said, in small chunks, implement in your life. So there are different ways of doing. I hope this was helpful. Thank you, Pat, so much for clarifying and bringing your perspective on this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed talking to you today and definitely have gotten a lot out of Halo so far.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Wisdom Woman Podcast. To hear past and future episodes, please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast channel. We appreciate your reviews. To give us suggestions for future show topics, please write to us at podcast@witchy.tech. If you're interested in having me as your trusted advisor, schedule a strategic coaching session on my website, www.witchy.tech.